Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. Let's bring in Hall of Fame pitcher, Tiger legend, and currently of Fox Sports Detroit, Jack Morris. Jack, thanks for joining us again here on the Word on Woodward. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Good to be here again.
I'm kind of curious before we get into pitching, and obviously I really want to talk to you about that, especially with Mize and Scooble just coming up and having a couple of starts under their belt. Tigers are 11 and 16, 27 games into the 60 game schedule. Maybe your overall view right now, are they kind of where you thought they would be? Are you surprised by anything?
Well, seems like every year baseball is a work in progress because of the season and the structure of the season. It started out quite nicely, to be honest with you, and C.J. Cron was a big part of that. Jonathan Scope and Austin Romine, three veteran guys that kind of seemed to change the dynamics in the clubhouse, and guys were out there kind of loose and free and playing good defense and hitting the ball all over the place. And, it looked like they were off to a really good start. And then Cron got hurt, and it seemed to change a little bit. So, that's part of baseball. Injuries are always a factor in the course of a season, and it's how teams adjust when those injuries occur. But overall, I don't think I'm seeing a lot that I didn't expect this year. I was hoping to see some of the young pitchers get their chance, and I know that it's a work in progress also. And, it's going to take some time, and I think Tiger fans need to understand that. You just don't create a Picasso overnight.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this in the past, the last time we had you on, but Romine behind the plate, can you, from your perspective, being obviously a Hall of Fame pitcher, how important is it to have a guy like Romine, especially with this young pitching staff?
Well, he's a veteran presence, and he's a no-nonsense guy. He's out there to win and compete every day. I loved what he said a few days ago on our broadcast. We had a quote from Austin, and he said that his job is to give the pitchers the information that they might not know. In other words, his pitch selection, the way he calls a game, is because he's studied it and understands the strengths and weaknesses of the hitter. And it's up to the pitcher to decide if they're on board with that pitch or they want to throw something else, because he feels, which I agree with 100%, that if a pitcher is convicted in his pitch and his pitch selection, then he's going to throw a better pitch than whatever he might have suggested. And I think that's so true, because only the pitcher on the mound knows what he feels he can throw in a good location on that particular pitch.
How about with Lance Parrish? You guys were such a formidable battery. I mean, did you have a lot of discussion with Lance, or if he called a pitch, did you shake him off a lot, or did you you knew why Lance was giving you whatever it was, the curveball or the fastball, whatever?
Well, number one, we didn't have the information they have today. Our scouting reports were based on an advanced scout's opinion on what the strengths are of that hitter. And until you went through the lineup yourself, you had no real clue on how to attack them
Wow.
until you did it yourself. Lance and I, when we were young, we both disagreed a lot on things. It was, he was learning the game, he was learning the pitch selection, and so was I in my abilities to throw the ball where I wanted to. So we disagreed quite a bit. But the cool thing is, it didn't take us long to get on the same page. And the second 2/3 of our careers together, I hardly had to shake Lance at all, because he knew what I was thinking, and it worked out pretty well.
Let's get into the Tiger staff. Obviously Casey Mize, a little rougher second go on Monday night against the Cubs than his major league debut against the White Sox. Overall, it just seemed like he just didn't have command of his pitches last night. Um, can you talk about what you have seen from Mize these first two starts? Because he seems not to lack poise or confidence, but I thought maybe last night, just watching through television, that he looked a little bit frustrated, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure he was frustrated because he wasn't able to command his fastball. Number one, the fastball is the pitch that makes everything else better. And you've got to be able to locate that fastball on all four quadrants of the strike zone. And he struggled to do that. And therefore, his secondary pitches, his split finger and his slider, weren't that effective. In fact, I would argue that he didn't have much of a slider at all last night. It just spun a couple times and got hammered once up in the zone. But he's going to learn from this. This is. I want to remind fans that I went through all this. The first time through, you're learning every major league hitter, and you're kind of learning yourself on the mound and what you can deal with. And the biggest thing and the most, I guess, successful part of what he can do is to be able to react in game sooner than later. In other words, from pitch to pitch, he's got to understand where his arm slot was and what he did wrong there and adjust it immediately. You can't go 3, 4, 5, 6 pitches before you make an adjustment, and he's going to learn that.
When he doesn't lack bravado, if I may use that word, and which I really, really like about him. If you were to offer him advice after 2 starts, what would you tell him right now?
Quite honestly, I don't think I have to tell him a whole lot. I think he understands it.
Mm-hmm.
He knows it himself. And, sometimes people just need to let a guy get through it himself. Casey understands that he misfired yesterday. He was the whole game was based on his location. He wasn't able to command his pitches. And falling behind too many guys, I thought he got a little bit split finger happy. And I've been through that myself. When your fastball isn't in command, you're trying to get guys to swing out of the zone, chase pitches, and when they don't swing, it's like, well, now what do I do, right? He's a bright kid. He's really sharp, and he's very determined, so I expect him to go work on his next bullpen session and try to iron out some of that command issue and have a better one his next time.
Tarek Skubal seemed to maybe have a better second outing than the first outing. I'm sure he's probably disappointed overall with his first 2 starts, but your opinion so far of Skubal, what have you seen that you like and maybe things that he needs to work on?
Well, I like his confidence also. I think Tarek is a lot like Casey in that regard. He's got a great fastball. I mean, it's great. The only problem is he doesn't quite have the good command yet. He throws it well up in the zone. He throws it well kind of down and in, but he hasn't shown down and away yet. He hasn't shown it up and in to an effect that he could. And so I think learning, like Casey, more command will set up pitches and getting ahead in the counts. It's so important at this level to be ahead because when you fall behind, hitters can zone in on a certain location or a certain pitch. And when you make a mistake, or if it's anywhere close to that zone, they're going to hammer it. I like what I see out of both the kids, and I'm willing to be patient for quite some time because I know that they have the tools to be really, really good.
Well, I'm really looking forward to them being Tigers for a long time as well, Jack. Pretty impressed with what both of those young men have done very early on in their Tigers career. Let's turn to some of the other starting pitchers. Matthew Boyd has been struggling the last couple of starts. He seems to be working himself out of it. Are you encouraged by what Boyd has been able to do the last couple of starts?
Absolutely, I am. The last 2 innings of his game in Chicago, he got real good. And then his last start, up until the inning that he exited, I thought he pitched a great game. He used his changeup a lot more, which was effective. He needed to use that against a team that sits on a lot of sliders and fastballs. And, he's figuring it out. Unfortunately, he left the game with a leadoff walk. And that leadoff walk came to pin him an L, right, a loss. And, he's been around the game long enough to know that could be a factor, and it was. And it's a shame, but, Matthew's the kind of guy that'll go back to the drawing board. And I think he's setting a good bar to a lot of the younger players and younger pitchers on, staying the course, doing your homework, getting your work in, and then going out with good preparation for your next one.
Spencer Turnbull starting tonight against the Cubs. Kind of curious. He started off like gangbusters, the old expression, Jack. And last couple of starts, I know Gardy took him out. Said this pitch count, he wanted to protect him. We've always heard that Turnbull's a little bit of, for lack of a better term, a firecracker out on the mound, gets a little too emotional. What have you seen from Spencer? And do you think that he can calm himself down and just use his God-given talent on the mound?
Well, what I've seen are kind of two different guys. The first couple games, he was a guy that seemed to have changed and really was attacking the zone, trusting his stuff, and you know, he's got the kind of stuff that you should attack the zone with because the ball moves all over the place. The last two games, I think he's trying to overthink and he was trying to guide the ball a little bit because he was falling behind so much. You can't be successful when you have his movement to be too fine. You got to throw strikes and work ahead in the count because he can get hitters to expand once he's ahead,
Hmm.
but it's hard for him to get back into a count once he's behind.
Wow, I know we're jumping around here, Jack. I want to get your opinion on so many of the pitchers, and your insight is so valuable. Michael Fulmer is coming back from Tommy John surgery. I know that he seems a little bit disappointed in his performance, but I don't know. Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but from where he's coming from, I think that he's okay, if that makes sense. I know he wants to be better, but I'm pretty encouraged by Fulmer at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of feel the same way you do that you know we want him to have great success right away and get all excited about the guy that we used to see out on the mound being the bulldog and coming and attacking and getting ahead and winning. Uh, that's going to take a little time. We got to remember what he's gone through, and I believe that he's going to get the time. I don't see Michael getting demoted to the bullpen anytime soon, and he's going to get some more starts, and he just needs to work through it. You look at the history of a lot of guys who have gone through the Tommy John surgery. The first year back isn't the greatest, but it can be 2 years out, and so he just needs to work through this year and try to make progress every single time he goes to the mound.
Another pitcher who maybe might be, and I know I'm over exaggerating here, a bit of a godsend has been Daniel Norris, though. Wasn't happy he was out in the bullpen, but obviously a guy who, when he was traded to Detroit, was the big guy in that deal. But it looks like he's starting to reach his, and I hate to use this word, but his full potential at this point.
Well, I think we found a good place for Daniel, whether he likes it or not. He's been really good as the long man in the bullpen, and he's going to eat up his innings that way instead of starting the game and then not getting too deep. So, it's a mindset, it's a change, and it's adjustment. But one thing we've seen is he's been able to throw a lot of strikes out of the pen, and he comes out there. He's had a really good changeup. He's had a really good fastball where he can command it, and he's had a really good breaking ball. And his last two outings were godsend for the Tigers pitching staff because he was able to eat up some innings and keep the games close.
Uh, I want to turn to the bullpen real quick. Buck Farmer, obviously, when he was out, that really did hurt the Tigers. He's been really, really good. But Joe Jimenez has struggled the last couple of outings. Should we be worried about the Tigers closer?
Um, Depends on how much you worry, I guess. He's going through a tough spell right now. And, command is his issue. Joe's never been a guy to come out and pinpoint every pitch. He's been working on a secondary pitch for a couple years now, that being his slider and his changeup. And he relies primarily on his fastball. But if he can't throw the fastball, I guess it's a great lesson for a lot of young kids that are out there that have strong arms. It's great to be able to blow by guys when you're young and in amateur ball and maybe in college ball, minor league ball even at times. But you get to the big league level, you've got to throw that same pitch on in a spot and not missed by more than a couple inches. So Joe's got to get better at that. I know he's working his tail off, and nobody feels worse about what he's done lately than Joe himself. So, you know, I've been through it. I know what he's going through. I hesitate to pick on him right now because
Hmm.
I know it's hard enough just the way it is. And I don't know what Gardy's thought is, what Rick Anderson's thought is, if they're going to give somebody else a shot at the closer role, if, the game's 1-run game or 2-run game late. How many times can you let a guy go out and really struggle? And Joe's shown that the last few outings. So maybe working him in a different situation to get some success again could be a help. But I'm not making that decision. I'm not a part of that discussion.
I'll tell you, Jack, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I could talk to you all day. I haven't even talked about any positional players at this point, but we'll have to save that for another conversation. I really enjoy your work. I think you're sandbagging on Pick the Stick, though. I think you and Peaches both, you guys, and Simo for that matter, you guys know this game inside and out.
Art, you might be right. You need to get us a bigger sponsor, and that reward has got to be bigger. You know, to play for a little, whatever that is, gnome of a guy. Yeah, it's not a real exciting thing for me to go after.
Well, hey, when you're playing for a World Series trophy, I can completely understand where you're coming from, Jack. It's always a
That's a
it's
different
always a
goal.
ple- Yes, it is a little bit different. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Jack. I mean, you're such a great player. You're doing a great job. I really enjoy your insight on Fox Sports. Keep up the good work, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Thanks for joining us on the Headliner.
All right, Art, be safe. Thanks.
You too, buddy. All right, that'll do it for the Headliner. The Headliner presented by Miller Lite. It's only 96 calories. It's the original light beer. It's delicious, and it's available for delivery. Daniela, back to you.